Hey guys, welcome to Hughes History. How you doing? So excited that you're here for a little bit of the flag burning. We're going to take a look at the controversial issue of flag burning through the lens of the 1989 Supreme Court case, Texas versus Johnson. And if you're in school, guys, you need to know it. And if you're not in school, you should know it anyway. So let's take a look at the case, then we'll talk a little bit about the issue as it stands today, and then you can leave it in the comments below. So if there's a court case, something happened. And it happened in 1984 in Dallas, Texas, whereby a young man by the name of Gregory Lee Joey Johnson, who's a member of the Revolutionary Communist Youth Brigade, has popped in to protest the renomination of Ronald Reagan at the Republican National Convention. And that's not the only reason they're there. They're really against Walter Mondale, too. They're against really the whole political system. And they're marching up and down the streets, and they're shouting slogans like, "America, red, white, and blue, we spit on you. You stand for plunder. You will go under." So these are very revolutionary kind of expressions of free speech, but that's not why they're going to be arrested. They're going to be arrested when good old Gregory grabs an American flag as they're getting close to City Hall, and he proceeds to pour kerosene on it, and much to the bewilderment of the crowd around, he actually burns it. And actually a man, Daniel E. Walker, actually ended up collecting the ashes and gave that flag a military burial, which kind of adds a new layer to the story. But needless to say, Gregory is going to jail because he has violated a law that stands in 48 of the 50 states, which basically says you can't vandalize what would be considered a respected object. Because the thought is that you're not doing it to really express a political view, you're doing it to kind of, troll thump and to annoy people. And you're really going to be kind of like threatening the peace, kind of a breach of peace concept. So Gregory is convicted. He's sentenced to a year in jail and something like $6,000 fine. And then it actually starts going through the court system. Of course, he's going to appeal. He first goes to the Fifth Court of Appeals where he loses. But then in the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, the highest court in Texas, he wins his case. That's why it's Texas versus Johnson. Texas is going to the Supreme Court and going, "What are you talking about? 14th Amendment and First Amendment. It says that Congress shall not pass any law abridging that of free speech." This isn't free speech. This is just an act of hatred and violence. And we need to be able to reserve the right to be able to control our state the way that we see fit. We're not violating the Constitution. So that's basically it. Now it goes to the big boys, goes to the Supreme Court. So this one's a squeaker. 5-4, guys. Really, one guy switches and, it's illegal, constitutionally illegal to burn the flag. That 5 is very interesting, actually. If you look at it, you have guys that you would expect. William Brennan, who's kind of to the left at that point. Thurgood Marshall, of course, he's a liberal. Harry Blackmun, he's a liberal. You have Anthony Kennedy, who's kind of a centrist. And you ready for this one? It's a really good one. You know anything about the Supreme Court? Antonio Scalia. Yeah, Scalia is a very, very far-right, strict constitutionalist. So he is even going to read into that First Amendment in a way that those other 4 aren't going to be able to do at that point. But this is what the court does in the majority. They ask basically 2 questions. They say, look, we've agreed in the past that it doesn't have to be speech to be protected. With that being said, not every act is going to be protected by the First Amendment. If you're going to run naked down the street screaming vulgarities or something like that, we're probably not going to allow that. But if we ask these 2 questions, first, was this act of flag burning, was it expressive? Was it intended to convey an idea? And secondly, is that idea clear to understand? And if you cut to the chase, what the court says is, of course this is expressive. Look where it happened. It happened at the Republican National Convention, a political arena. So there was absolutely an expressive act going on. And if you look at what the court says, they say,
"Under the circumstances, Johnson's burning of the flag constituted expressive conduct permitting him to invoke the First Amendment, occurring as it did at the end of a demonstration coinciding with the Republican National Convention. The expressive, overtly political nature of the conduct was both intentional and overwhelmingly apparent."
Everybody knew that they were doing a political act by burning that flag. So this reverses all 48 state laws. And in 1990, we're going to get a different court case, which is going to overturn the Flag Protection Act, basically saying the court has agreed that the First Amendment's right to free speech covers flag burning, no matter how offensive others might find that. The court then brings in the 14th Amendment and the equal kind of protection clause under the law that all states are going to have this uniformity. So it's a First Amendment case and a 14th Amendment case. And now let's talk about whether you think we should do it or not. So there's only one way to overturn it. Well, actually two ways. You could get a different court. And if that court agrees to hear that court kind of case again and they want to overturn it, they could overturn their own precedent, but nobody really expects that to happen. So the only other alternative, of course you all know it, say it out loud with me. It's a constitutional amendment. And they've been trying for years to actually get this done. The last time in 2006, it passed the House. It needs a 2/3 majority in the House and the Senate, and it fell one vote short in the Senate. So, and then of course it would have to go to the states, but most scholars agree that most states are, Republican conservative. They probably go with this amendment. But what do you think? Do you think that somebody has the constitutional right to burn the flag? Is that kind of the ultimate freedom, the ultimate, the old argument is, you didn't die for the flag. You died fighting for my right to burn the flag. Or is that so offensive to the men and women who defend this country and are fighting for the flag? I don't know. That's your call down in the comments below. I think it comes down, at least for the court, that, you can burn a flag, but you cannot burn the flag, because the flag at the end of the day is a symbol. And these individual acts are just kind of expressionary freedom of speech activities, and if you ignore them, that's probably the best thing to do. But I don't know. I want to know what you think about it, and that's why we have comments down below. So go ahead and spar it out, guys, and let's see if we can't do it the American way. You don't even have to be an American to comment, though. If you haven't subscribed to Hughes History, make sure that you hit that red button right there. I don't know why I have a southern accent. There was no offense intended in me having that. But you should press the red stupid button right there. And always remember, I say at the end of every lecture, say it with me, where attention goes, energy flows. We'll see you next time that you press my buttons.